Prince Harry's African Parks charity is facing fresh allegations after reports that a pregnant woman was trampled on, causing her to lose her unborn child. So, where is the Duke of Silence, and where does he stand on the repeated accusations of abuse by his closed-door charity? To quote the Duke of Sussex from his January 2023 interview with Anderson Cooper on CBS's 60 Minutes, silence is betrayal. It has been almost 1 year since African Parks board member Prince Harry barely acknowledged the allegations against one of his favorite charities, telling the Daily Mail he passed on their concerns to the higher-ups. Translation: he'd washed his hands of the situation. But the stories circulating keep getting worse. And Harry's silence is deafening. According to Newsweek, Harry's scandal-plagued African Parks charity is facing new, heartbreaking allegations. The latest accusations relate to an incident that took place after African Parks called in Omnia Strategy, a law firm established by Sherry Blair, the wife of former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, to conduct an investigation. Newsweek says that Survivor International, which campaigns for Indigenous people, said it was told by Baka tribes people that a group of women had been promised a meeting with management about the destruction of crops by elephants. Paul Renaud, who works on the organization's conservation campaign, told Newsweek the members of the community had an appointment with a high-level African Parks manager, and the person wasn't there, so the women started to complain. The guards refused to let them stay and forced them to leave by whipping them and beating them, which led to a woman being actually trampled on and losing her baby. African Parks responded to a request for comment by Newsweek, saying that their guards reported the alleged incident in May 2024. In turn, African Parks immediately shared this information with Omnia Strategy. They said, as a result, it is subject to their ongoing independent investigation. African Parks has committed to respond to Omnia's findings at the conclusion of their investigation, which we now expect in early 2025. Survivor International's Paul Renaud responded by saying, this shows the violence is still ongoing, even though it's turned into an international scandal. Even as that investigation is ongoing, an event like this led to violence. Yet African Parks is trying to present things as improving and talking about a zero-tolerance approach. Newsweek notes that the original allegations that sparked the investigation included an account of a ranger leading a woman into the rainforest and essaying her as she held her baby. Elaine was quoted by the Mail on Sunday in January 2024, describing how the ranger said, "I'll shoot you," as he led her away from her home. She added, "I was holding my baby while being SA'd and trying to protect him. My first reaction had been to protect my baby. It was very violent." The Duke has had plenty of time to respond, plenty of opportunities to respond to these horrific stories. In September, Harry traveled to New York City, where he attended the UN General Assembly High-Level Week and Climate Week New York, with engagements for African Parks, among others. Harry's African Parks events were the only events that did not include media access. Even Newsweek's Jack Royston called Prince Harry out for his silence, saying, "I think that is slightly outrageous, to be honest, because Prince Harry has faced calls to resign from the board of directors, and he has resisted those calls. So, if he's going to continue to represent this organization in spite of these profoundly serious allegations, and he's going to continue advocating for African Parks, it does feel slightly cowardly to do it behind closed doors and away from public accountability. I've not seen or heard any particular justification for why it's remaining private. Cowardly? What an appropriate description." Back in January, an investigation by the Mail on Sunday discovered deeply disturbing accusations of violence, SA, and torture of locals in rainforests of the Republic of the Congo by guards managed and paid for by the African Parks charity. Prince Harry was its president for 6 years until enjoying a promotion to its governing board of directors just last year. The Mail on Sunday exposed first-hand testimonials from locals alleging violent encounters with the charity, forcing them to stop entering forests where they have foraged, fished, hunted, and found medicines for years. One witness who claims he saw a brutal attack by African Parks guards says that he wished Prince Harry would use his power and notoriety to intervene in order to stop the pain and suffering caused to their community. Harry has not. Survivor International, referenced earlier, was one of the first to approach Prince Harry about the alleged abuse in May of last year. Harry responded saying that he would make the organization aware of the situation. He provided no evidence of that conversation. After the accusations went public, a spokesperson for Archewell told the Mail on Sunday when the Duke became aware of these serious allegations, he immediately escalated them to the CEO and chairman of the Board of African Parks, the appropriate people to handle next steps. There was no improvement, so Survivor International formally asked Prince Harry to show solidarity for the locals and victims by quitting. They said, "We hope that his stepping down from the board of directors will give a clear signal to this organization that human rights abuses in the name of conservation are not tolerated anymore." Obviously, Prince Harry did not quit his post. In a formal statement responding to the Mail on Sunday's investigation, African Parks said, "We have a zero-tolerance policy for any form of abuse and are committed to upholding the rights of local and Indigenous people." The Duke of Sussex once said of the charity, "The African Parks model is exactly what conservation should be about, putting people at the heart of the solution." The charity manages 22 parks in 12 African countries with 1,400 guards patrolling protected land almost the size of Britain. They claim that they save wildlife by working with local communities. I mean, if these reports are true, working with local communities is actually the opposite of what is transpiring. This year, African Parks was also accused of brutality in Zambia, where locals have the right to sustainably harvest natural resources such as fish, antelope, and rabbits. According to the Mail, African Parks has managed the area since 2008 in partnership with the government. The charity says this is its only project where management responsibilities are not fully integrated, with conservation law enforcement remaining under the supervision of the Department of National Parks and Wildlife. The report explains that intimidation is a key strategy. In September of 2021, a marketplace was sprayed with gunfire, injuring villagers and innocent children, suspects unknown. Several locals told the Mail that the market shooting happened immediately after rangers arrested an individual found with antelope meat. This incident sparked demonstrations and rock throwing that damaged vehicles, including 2 belonging to African Parks. Meanwhile, locals within one of Africa's most important wetlands claim they are suffering a campaign of intimidation to stop them from fishing and hunting on their own land, while tourists arrive on safari expeditions that can cost up to £5,000 a day. One outspoken villager said, "Our home has become a nightmare that frightens us every day." Another local who was victim to gunfire begged the African Parks to leave, saying they have turned this place into hell. African Parks said multiple incidents had been reported to the criminal justice system, and rangers were found to have acted in self-defense due to armed threats from suspected poachers. In a 2022 annual report, the charity admitted that it had seen a number of unfortunate interactions between residents and the park rangers, which have led to both injuries and fatalities. African Parks currently has some of the biggest donors in conservation, mostly Americans and Europeans. Howard Buffett, son of Warren, is one of those familiar names, plus Rob Walton, heir to the Walmart fortune, pledging $100 million over 5 years, one of the biggest single donations in the history of conservation. In a recent article by the Financial Times, they explain To African Park supporters, the organization is one of the most important conservation organizations in the world. To its detractors, it's a sinister land grabbing machine and practitioner of a militaristic model of wilderness protection they call fortress conservation. Why should these white men in shorts, in the words of one former official from an African country who dealt closely with African parks, build a state within a state where your basic approach to local people is they're a pain in the arse, that they'd be better off somewhere else? African Park's chief executive told the Financial Times that he wanted to raise African Park's tally of landscapes to 30 by the end of the decade. He also claims that weapons are necessary, both to fight off poachers and to protect rangers from dangerous animals. He says since African Parks was founded, 54 rangers have died in action. The organization admitted to the Financial Times that they were angry about a recent book slamming them. The book is by an investigative journalist named Olivier Van Beeman, titled Entrepreneurs in the Wild. According to the Financial Times, it describes African Parks as a shady, militaristic organization with too much power and too little accountability. The nervous chief exec admitted it starts badly on page 1, and that's the best page in the book. African Parks disputes the numerous claims in Van Beeman's book and admits that they are worried about the potential impact on donors who would this year fund African Parks' $130 million budget. In fact, there was an internal memo sent to staff warning that the organization suddenly seems to be coming under a coordinated media attack. Harry and Meghan Playbook 101, from writers peddling a narrative that pits nature conservation against humanity. While African Parks argue that private donors literally couldn't give a damn, they are worried that those with greater public exposure might cut and run. This is why I constantly ask myself if Prince Harry is just African Park's puppet, a mascot to distract from their bad behavior. Entrepreneurs in the Wild suggest that at one point, African Parks actually questioned whether Harry could be a liability to them, quoting a source suggesting there were fears controversies surrounding Harry might pose a risk to the organization. However, as Newsweek points out, ultimately it appears to have been the other way around, as the allegations against Rangers have caused a reputational crisis for Harry. Quoted in the Times, Van Beeman said, "I think Prince Harry and others on the board should question the organization's model, its practices, and governance, and reconsider their own roles." The book's author also told the Financial Times that African Parks had tried to block his research, saying, "It's not my purpose to burn them, but the way they react really gives you the impression they're hiding something." I mean, back to New York. Why weren't media allowed in their, events? That's bizarre. In the article in the Times earlier this year, Van Beeman exposed torture testimonials from one former African Parks ranger who explained you tie someone up, hands and feet tied together behind his back, and you hang him on a stick between two branches, and then you spin him around while you hit him. It doesn't last long because it hurts a lot. When he hangs there, he says everything you want, even things he doesn't know. Survivor International spoke to the Financial Times, explaining that in their opinion, African Parks is one of the worst actors in terms of fortress conservation, of violence by park rangers and land grabbing in the name of conservation. They argue that conservation often rested on the racist misconception that Indigenous people cannot be trusted to look after land and wildlife, of which they have been guardians for generations. I wouldn't trust Prince Harry with a goldfish, let alone a piece of sacred land, but here we are. When the Financial Times asked the African Parks chief exec about the argument that Indigenous people are the best guardians of their wildlife, he replied, "You've got to be careful about over-romanticizing these things." What a gent. In the same piece, African Parks goes into a little more detail about what the repercussions were when it came to the male's allegations. They said they knew about two of the incidents, one in which an armed guard attacked a female and another in which a teenage boy claimed to have been groomed. Both rangers were fired and the alleged attacker handed over to authorities. But other allegations, including the man who claimed to have been waterboarded by rangers, was new to them. That is when the organization contacted Omnia Strategy to begin their independent investigation. I do think it's worth noting that Sherry Blair is a Republican and reportedly chooses handshakes rather than curtsies when meeting royals, and that included the late Queen Elizabeth II. Apparently, it drove the late Queen Mother crazy that she wanted to handshake over curtsy. According to royal historian Carolyn Harris, Sherry's preference for a handshake attracted controversy as it was seen as making a statement about Republican views. In the 2016 biography, Tony Blair, Broken Vows, author Tom Bauer revealed that Sherry Blair was often accused of snubbing the royal family or behaving inappropriately around them. Am I suggesting they might side with royal outcast Prince Harry and co? Well, I certainly hope they would not. I would hope that this investigation would be one of integrity. Since the Mail's original story broke in January, Prince William has invested his energy in working with United for Wildlife to support rangers and other professionals who play a critical role in nature protection through training and leadership development. Ensuring that rangers are properly trained, Prince William wants them to understand that they do more than just protect wildlife. They are educators and community ambassadors, giving rangers the confidence to succeed and manage their responsibilities with discipline, dignity, and integrity. At this year's United for Wildlife Global Summit in November, Prince William announced a new package of support for rangers and other conservation professionals. Launched by United for Wildlife together with Tusk Trust and the Game Rangers Association of Africa, the Ranger Welfare and Standards Initiative is the first sustained multi-year initiative to be rolled out across Africa. The 5-year plan will provide 10,000 rangers with access to appropriate, affordable in-service and medical evaluation insurance coverage, along with opportunities for training and leadership development. Prince William seems dedicated to serving people working on the front line of conservation globally by providing additional education and boosting confidence in rangers. I imagine that he hopes to significantly improve their job performance and experience, hopefully avoiding the types of issues African Parks is having with their rangers, allegedly. So tell me in the comments, could this never-ending scandal be the reason Prince Harry canned his much-hyped African documentary for Netflix? How do you claim to represent Africa's best interests with these accusations floating around? And do you think African Parks is hiding behind Prince Harry's royal connections? Why has Prince Harry refused to step down from the board of African Parks? He quits everything else so easily. Let me know in the comments below. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with a friend. See you next time. I'm Kinsey Schofield.